It's a small group, so guys, feel free to move up. We can get cozy in here. So, she gave a brief introduction. I'll get a little bit more in depth about who I am and all of that good stuff. I want to welcome you all to WordCamp Detroit. There's a lot of exciting talks going on right now, so I'm very thankful that you all and privileged that you guys came in to hang out with me, so to speak. So before we get started, I wanted to finish housekeeping, let you guys know about ways you can get social with us throughout the conference, and then just be on the journey with us as we visit different talks and we hang out, because as you know, there's after party and everything like that. So you can follow us on Twitter at WordCamp Detroit, and then the hashtag we'll be using is WCBET. So if you hear something that resonates with you, feel free. You can find me at Barely Artic, and my company is called Barely Articulating. I apologize. So that's how you can be in touch with me. And our hashtag for this official talk is going to be Code Dis. Okay? Alright, so we can move forward. I see tons of inquisitive faces, and I know our chat is going to have tons of perspective. So, also feel free to take notes, because after my talk, we'll do a 10-minute Q&A. So you all can kind of probe me, engage my thinking, and understand a little bit more of one of the slides or topics that I covered. All right, so moving forward, there is an activity I would love for you guys to do with me so that we can demystify some of the perceptions about dyslexia. So grab out your phones or pull out your laptops, and we'll get started with this activity. It is called Kahoot, and it's really just a truth or a myth about some of the things that people easily misconstrue when it comes to dyslexia. So I want to click on it here, and you need to go to, you can Google Kahoot, or it's kahoot.it. And Andy, if you don't mind coming up here for just a quick second, because I want to click on the link that's just gonna, so I can see it here, but I can't see it here. So
are you using those
yeah, I'm kind of using that. Well, no, I'm not using them, so I didn't put them
okay.
here.
Sweet, so we're going to do this really quick.
Yeah. So I just want to make sure I can see what you guys are seeing. We can talk a little bit about some of the things that are easily misunderstood or disregarded when it comes to
So now you're seeing the same thing as
Excellent. So we're going to do the classic activity, and let's see, we can start. It's going to give me a code. Is everybody on Kahoot.it? All right, so the code to log in will be 4981273. And just say got it when you are able to get started. Okay, I see Culinandy and Ian Smith. E-money. I'll wait for a few more of you. All right, Allison Plus. So we have 4 people in. You like the music over there? I don't mind. Okay, so we have Veronica 2000 in. I'm going to wait just another moment to make sure everyone has access to it. Thank you, Jean. Yeah, 4, 6, 8. So it's about 9 of us in here. Oh, 10, sorry. I think you're in the back. Yes. Yeah. We're missing about 2 people. I'll just wait patiently. Don't want everyone to play along. And you can use your phones, or if you have a computer, you want to access that either way.
I'm not sure how to join that computer.
You just need to go to kahoot.it.
I think that might be fun.
Yeah.
Oh,
Got the game in is 498. Alright, I have 9 people in, so I'm gonna get started. That's the majority of us. 10, all 10, excellent. So we'll get started. Hello.
Hello.
We're looking at an activity we're gonna do really quickly to gauge where everyone is. You can have a seat, pull out your phone, and log in. This game is just to kind of warm us up, almost an icebreaker to see how much you already know about dyslexia. We'll talk in depthly about some of the answers, so if you get something wrong, don't beat yourself up about it. It's all in games, all in fun. So we have one more person going to wait till he gets in, and then we're going to start. You can just grab your phone and go to kahoot.com. .it, I apologize. .it. And you'll put the game in and we'll get started. And guys, don't be afraid to get closer either.
All the way in the back.
You're all the way in the back. Alrighty.
This reminds me of every corporate teleconference I've ever participated in. The music.
The music?
No, this is the first 15 minutes. Everybody's right now. How do I do that?
Okay, excellent. Let's move forward. Alright, we're gonna start. Alright, so are you ready? I hope so. Okay, so dyslexia is caused by a lack of early reading. Is that true or is that false? It'll let me know. I have 7 answers so far. Okay. So let's see. So 9 people said false, and false is actually the correct answer. So give yourselves a pat on the back. It is not caused by a lack of early reading. It is a difference in the way that you perceive or decode letters and words, essentially. So it's not because mom and dad didn't read to you as a child, or that you weren't able to participate in any of the reading activities as a kindergartner. It's simply a difference in the way that you read and see wording. Alright, so it looks like Nicole was the quickest one. Where's Nicole at? Alright, girl. She was the quickest one to spit out that answer. And we're going to move forward. There is one test that can diagnose dyslexia. True or false? Oh yeah, we're getting them in quick.
Yeah.
Is it the wrong one or is it?
Oh, it flipped it.
I hate a dyslexic person. It's like
part of the thing.
You're on to something. Alright, so the answer is false actually, and only 4 people got that right. This is wrong here, but there's not one test that can diagnose dyslexia. There is a multitude of tests. Usually it's about 5 tests. Achievement tests, so that you can recognize an individual's IQ. They do a language test, an oral, reading and writing test, as well as a social skills test. So it's a multitude of tests that go into an actual diagnosis for dyslexia. It's not just one test. It would be nice if there was one test, but it would probably be an all-day testing session. All right, so in Smith, yes?
I'm confused on the last slide.
Yeah, on the last slide. The last question.
The answer was...
The answer was wrong. It was actually wrong, but on here it said true, so we're going to work with it. But yeah, it was false. So only 4 people got that one right, and 6 people thought it was just one test. But there are various tests that need to
But the
go
answer
into
that you showed said true.
Yeah, it was wrong.
So it was wrong.
Yes.
Well, see,
The computer already.
I'm dropping out of school. I was gonna say that.
Trying so fast.
We got 2 seconds, you got 9 minutes, 10. Good deal. Okay, so the answer to this one is true and false. So this is another true one. So, all children see letters in reverse, or they swap letters. But within the second year of writing instruction, you can tell those who may need some remediation or need further assistance. Because usually you catch on. You know, children learn to play, and once they become accommodated to the rigors of school, and they learn how to write, handwriting, learning their names and things like that, they do reverse letters. And the B is a D, or saw is a was. However, after 2 years of instruction, if they are still exhibiting those issues, then at that point they need to be tested for dyslexia.
But they don't typically reverse the entire word.
Not the entire word, because they're still learning words. Yeah. All right, Dan Smith again, on a roll. Moving on, social economic status is factored into dyslexia, or dyslexia diagnosis. This is a tricky one.
It's tricky, so they can have like scary music on.
Yeah! And that was so off the blue. All right. So it looks like we have 6 people that said true, however, it is false. So socioeconomic status, which is whether you come from a poor upbringing or a wealthier upbringing, has nothing to do with whether you will be diagnosed or whether you will exhibit dyslexia. However, the dividing factor within that, the silver lining is that usually wealthier families are able to afford remediation for their children. They can afford to get private tutors and people who are skilled in teaching individuals how to read, how to write. However, those from poor socioeconomic families, they generally can fall through the cracks. They can slip through the cracks a lot easier because they don't have that support. They're unable to afford the expense of buying or paying for private tutors. So that's a tricky question, but not quite. So, E-money, all right. On the street here, okay. So males are more likely to exhibit dyslexia than females. Is that true or false? This is another good one. When I was creating this quiz, I wanted to use statements that really probed you on to make you do a little more thinking. Okay, so 4 of you got this right, and it is false. So, when it comes to males and females in the dyslexia spectrum, we'll call it, males are more verbal, they exhibit behavioral problems or issues that are more transparent. So that's how they are able to be identified quicker than women or females. We tend to suffer in silence. So we're unable to read, and then we're struggling with the letters on our page, jumping about, but we sit there quietly. So educators and people who are meant to assist us, they're not able to identify, oh, she's struggling over there. So again, it affects both men and women at the same rate. However, men, you can see it a little bit more through their behavioral issues opposed to women. All right, we have a few more to go, I think 2 or 3 more, and we're all set. E-money, I see you. Reading more can cure dyslexia. Is this true or false? Reading more can cure dyslexia. All right. So the answer is false. And the reason it is false, it actually won't let me go back either, so I can see how many of you all got it right or wrong. I see you still on this winning streak out here. So reading more won't cure dyslexia. If you do not understand how the decoding works with the letters and blending the sounds, reading more would only cause you more strife. Okay, so it's not going to magically help you overcome this particular ailment. You're going to keep reading and again suffering in silence. So it's not reading that can remediate dyslexia. Alright, moving on. Dyslexia runs in families. It is inherited. Is that statement true or false? Alright, 7 of you said true, and 7 of you are correct. It is a neurobiological ailment. It's not considered a disease. It's really just a difference in the way that you read. If your parents, either your mom or your dad, happens to have dyslexia, then it is likely that you will have it as well. But please be mindful that when your parents were growing up, dyslexia wasn't a thing. So they may not even know that they have it. It may be that they didn't like to read or they didn't like school. Things like that could have played a part. But if mom and dad, or mom or dad, had issues with reading or had dyslexia, then it's likely you will too. All right, Veronica. Okay, dyslexia is a neurological disorder. Therefore, a doctor, a medical doctor, has to diagnose it. All right, let's see what the answers are. Okay, so you guys are right. 8 of you are correct. That is false. A medical doctor doesn't diagnose dyslexia. Usually it is an educational specialist or someone who is privy to Orton Gillingham instruction and how dyslexia works. So it's not something done at a hospital or clinic, so to speak. What is done generally is research on the dyslexic brain opposed to a lexic brain. So those are the only things that medical doctors really involve themselves in. It's more of the research, the MRIs, doing cerebral blood patterns, and understanding the brain and how it relates to dyslexia. But they won't be able to diagnose it because it really comes from an educational standpoint. All right. Right. ADHD and dyslexia commonly occur together. Alright, all 10 in. So we have 50-50. So the answer to this is actually true. Because 60% of individuals who experience dyslexia also have the attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. So it is very common that you have both. Alright, I think we have, this may be our last one. Only English speakers can be identified as dyslexic. 10. Okay, good. So this is something that happens all over the world, all in several different countries and on different continents. It's not about a language. Dyslexia doesn't have a language barrier. So you can speak fluent German and also be dyslexic in German. However, the disconnect comes a lot of times when children are being educated and English is their second language. A lot of people may assume that they may have some struggles and they may have dyslexia because they're not grasping the English language very quickly. Alright, so we are moving on. Thank you all for playing that cool game with me. It looks like Patty is our winner. We have, let's see, Nicole and then Veronica. Alright, so we're going to hop back out of this and jump back into my slides. So at this time, I'll give you guys a little bit of info about who I am. I'm going to talk about, let me put on presentation mode. Alright, so here I am. I am Jeanette. My mother is named Annette, and she thought it was cute that she named her daughters Lynette and Jenny. I don't understand parents. She even admittedly said that if she had another daughter, she would name her Nene. I said, Mom, you're doing the most. So I'm an educator by day. I work within the Detroit public school system, and I'm a third grade teacher. So I was talking to my friend Allison over here about my introduction and how I would introduce you all to myself. Because I said I'm so used to working with 8 and 9-year-olds, and when I'm, communicating with them or introducing myself to them, if I tell them my first name, it's like, oh my gosh, she has a first name. And we were joking because we said, if you see one of your students in a grocery store, they're like, oh my God, you eat food? So it's like, how do I talk to adults and really explain myself and who I am to you guys without being, embarrassed or ashamed that I eat food and have a first name. So I'm a mother. I have a 5-year-old. His name's Terrell. He's definitely got dressed this morning thinking and under the impression that he was coming to code at WordCamp. He said, no, you're going to grandma's. So he's precocious, little boy, and I've actually been teaching him how to code using code.org. So we shall see how that unravels. He's, as a 5-year-old, he gets quite frustrated when he is unable to make the game work how it's supposed to work. But with coding, and as you know, with using WordPress and different platforms, it's all about patience. Patience is the key. So I think that's really all about me. I love thrift shopping. I still own my college car. Her name is Coconut, and I love her so much. Coconut and I have been all over. She's like over 200,000 miles at this point, but I'm definitely not giving her up until the wheels fall or something. So that's just a little bit about me. Let's dive further in. So I'm going to show you guys a simulation really quickly about dyslexia. This picture you see up here is what a young man created so that he could understand how he could create a distinct way of identifying letters. Because again, with dyslexia, it's very difficult for individuals to decode words. So let me see, can I click this? Yes, I can. So this is a simulation. I'll make it larger so you guys can see it. Now be mindful that obviously dyslexia comes in different forms, and this is not by the means in all tell all. But I really thought this was interesting. Someone using GitHub pages to create what they assume dyslexia looks like. So as you see, the letters are moving around on the page. Everything kind of looks alike and sort of not. Would anybody volunteer to try to read with the first line?
A friend who has dyslexia described to me how she interprets.
Experience.
Yeah. She can read, but it takes a lot of concentration, and thus letters seem to jump around.
Yeah. So this is what some of our colleagues may be experiencing on a regular basis. However, this to me is an extreme form. This is not at all what I presume dyslexia is like, but it's very interesting to see. We certainly take it for granted, because I would not have been able to read that very first passage. It's a little confusing to me. I know the frame, but that was probably it. Moving on. They have created some really unique and unparalleled different fonts that exist. This one is from Dyslexic. It's a company in the UK, and what they use generally are some fonts that have heavy bottoms and unique openings, so that you won't get the terms confused and you won't see that some of the letters are similar to other letters. So I try to make it a little bigger because you may not be able to see it, but I thought this was pretty awesome. Like the P has a larger bottom than the L, so you would never get those confused with any other letters. So yeah, there's a couple different fonts that exist, but this one is very popular in the UK. And I've actually used it before working with students. And to my understanding, they were really able to see the letters and they didn't mirror one another because they were all very unique and distinct. All right, I know our game took so long. I'm going to try to fly through the next couple slides. Alrighty. So this is a brain image of a lexic reader and a dyslexic reader. And as you will see, there are obviously some differences. And that's why it's a neurological or neurobiological ailment, because as you see, the lexic brain has a lot of activity going on the left hemisphere. And if you look down at someone who has dyslexia and look at that brain pattern, you don't see a whole lot of activity going on there. So the brain dominance theory is definitely evolving around dyslexia, because at first they were saying, well, maybe it's a hearing disorder, or maybe it's something with eyesight. But then we had some medical doctors get together and do some research, and they said, wow, there are some differences with the blood flow and the activity and the strength of those two hemispheres, as you see. So let me see, I think I may have, I know I don't have a whole lot of time. So we're going to move on to our next activity. And I wanted to stress how important it is that you acknowledge that dyslexia is different across the board. And so I went and grabbed some Rubik's Cubes, because these to me symbolize the difference that people experience with the different colorful spectrums of dyslexia. Now, Rubik's Cubes are 44 years old. They have about 43 quintillion. Can you guys say that? Quintillion. 43 quintillion configurations that can occur. And again, this symbolizes how puzzling dyslexia can be. I have a few extras, but feel free to share with some people next to you. I don't want to throw them. They're plastic, they might hurt. There you go. Did you get us? There you go. All right, so we got enough for everybody. So take a moment and try to figure out how to, we'll get it back to exactly where it was. Because we know we have 6 colors, 21 pieces, and 54 outer surfaces. So take a look. Is anyone privy to how to complete a Rubik's Cube? Not quite, sort of, maybe not, especially not this small. It seems like it's a little bit more cumbersome that it's little like this. Yeah. Dyslexia can be very puzzling, and again, this colorful spectrum that it has reminds me of the Rubik's Cube puzzle. Alright, so when you guys have mastered that, we'll move on. We have a few moments left, so let me get on to our next. I think this is slide before that. Oh yeah. So fist bump the person next to you when you get a chance, but it looks like everybody's pretty far from each other, so we're gonna fist bump each other again. But this symbolizes to me how technology and mankind can really partner with one another to create some really unique hacks. Okay, so when it comes to dyslexia, and you are a coder, whether you are doing front end or back end, it's very important that you have some different hacks and some different ways to accommodate yourself when you are at work or when you're working from home. You have to have a way to leverage the playing field. Okay, so we have audio readers. Some audio readers can be really helpful, like Dragon Speech. And what it will do, obviously, as you guys know, it'll help read some of the wording for you. And you have a Natural Reader, which is really cool. And these are like great for those who experience ADHD. I just realized that, because having something to kind of fidget with while you're kind of getting your mind right for your assignment or whatever you're doing at work, this is pretty awesome. So you also want to use, moving to the next bullet, internet filters. I know I have a very difficult time staying on task. So internet filters provide you with the opportunity to be unable to go to different websites. I mean, sometimes I am creating code for something for work, and next thing I know, I'm on Facebook. How did I get there? I don't know. But the internet filters are so helpful because they can help block out the interwebs and everything that's happening. I've even talked to people who like disconnect their Wi-Fi router while they're working on something specifically so that they can stay focused and engaged. And then finally, you want to be practicing your syntax all the time. Because with being dyslexic, you just need the opportunity to practice, so that when you come to the table with your counterparts, who are typical developers, or they may not experience exceptionalities like you want to be able to bring a unique perspective and to be on their level, so to speak. So that's why it's important to use Coding Bad or Code Academy and those types of platforms to help you learn or to better your syntactical skills, because concepts can be tricky. I have a friend with dyslexia who often sketches out his code before he goes in to do it. And some internet filters, now that I think about it, are going to be K9 and Verify, just in case you guys are really interested in looking at ways to block out what's going on the internet. All right, let's see. Moving on, I want to talk about, rather, some of our our ranks, join the ranks of those who have dyslexia. So we have Octavia Spencer, who played in Hidden Figures, and she was also in The Help. You guys remember the chip pie from The Help? That was the slave here. We have Tim Tebow. He just retired from the NFL. Now he's playing baseball in the major league. So he has dyslexia. Will Smith, comedian, rapper, and probably one of my favorite actors. Jennifer Aniston, America's Sweetheart. Of course, Steve Jobs would be someone with a different ability in thinking, and dyslexia is considered MIT's disease because the top engineers, entrepreneurs, and architects usually possess this particular difference. So that's it for me. I know I have like 1 minute left. We have 10 minutes Q&A. You guys, this is so fast. Oh my God. Imagine if I did a 10-minute slide. So feel free to ask away. I know I didn't cover a whole lot and get in depth, but questions are certainly welcome. Any questions?
So if you, so like say that you run a company, right, or you manage a team of developers, what are some of the ways that you can help support them? You know, maybe they don't know that they have dyslexia, or maybe they do, and you want to help support them be better at managing around that. You know, what are some of the ways that you would suggest doing that?
Excellent question. So neurodiversity in the workplace is definitely a thing. You have to imagine that no one is the same. The way we learn is completely different from others. So to support individuals who may exhibit or may not know that they have dyslexia, I would say to use multi-sensory activities, to provide pictures for instructions, to make sure that the font is enlarged, and using different colors, and always maybe using audio, because when I think of multi-sensory, I'm thinking of all 5 senses. Obviously, you can't incorporate taste and smell, but you definitely want to cover your bases with touching and being able to see differently. So just incorporating different ways for them to learn or for them to show their skills, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yes.
A two-part question.
Okay.
So, what different types of dyslexia is there?
Okay.
And how do you program, like, if you're a programmer, how do you program with dyslexia? Because stuff is jumping around, or letters missing, or if you have issues with numbers, how does that all, how can you be effective?
Okay, great. Another great question. So dyslexia is on a spectrum, kind of like autism. So there's like a severe, then there's a moderate, and then obviously there's like a low dyslexia where you kind of maybe have it, but not quite. So as it relates to programmers who have been identified as having dyslexia, I would certainly use different hacks like I suggested as far as audio, Because maybe seeing it, again, as you said, it's jumping around, it's gonna cause you confusion, and it's gonna waste time. So maybe you need to hear the instructions of what you're supposed to be doing. Maybe you need to spend extra time on those sites like Coding Lab or Coding Academy so that you can get your syntax in order. I've been told that solitude is very effective, having white noise or noise canceling headphones, and it's all about it's finding what works for you. What works for you. I mean, you have to go through trial and error. But once you can identify some ways that you work better, go for it.
I was gonna say lighting.
Yeah, lighting.
Lighting is a huge thing. Fluorescent lights. I'm like super mild. My daughter is like way up on that spectrum of the dyslexia. But in fluorescent lights, my eyes are going everywhere on my page. I have a hard time in that lighting. And the screen of a computer, I can uncover.
I've seen people use code in specific colors because it sticks out to them a little better. So lighting is definitely a hack that you can use.
I went to my doctor, with the same thing for us, like I said, I've got blue tinted,
Rose is really good too.
blue tinted glasses.
Yeah, rose is
Has that been helpful for you?
You know what, I don't go to the office anymore because of the lights, and when I'm home, I just turn off the lights, so.
Okay.
It's, I haven't got around to do that, but I should do.
You should.
I mean,
That's how it works.
Funny you say that because there's just like, it's kind of a running joke in the developer community, like they like dark rooms and turn the lights off.
Yeah.
And you know, when I walked into my new job earlier this year, all the lights were off, and I was like, is anybody here? They're all, you know, that's just their way of coping, and not necessarily because it's dyslexia, it's just a concentration thing.
Yeah.
It makes it easier for them to do
Yeah,
that.
there are no light switches at our work, and like one of the developers stood up on there and was like, I'm gonna unscrew all this.
It's generally like trial and error, finding out what exactly works and helps motivate you to do it. I love working with her.
It's okay. It's okay.
Yeah.
I was about to
I
say,
got it.
walking in here late, we're talking about a specific font that appeals to the mind with dyslexics and autistics. And I work with people like that. As a matter of fact, I'm also ADD and I can all autism. But also something for you over at Macomb Community College, the entire art department does not use overhead fluorescence. We use side lighting, up lighting, a combination of warm and sun lighting lamps. And so we have a mix and a combination of sunlight, warm light, cool light all around the room that's incandescent or LED. So because all it blinks at a high rate of speed and it does messes up your eyes. And since what is it, autism, strobe lights,
Yeah.
that's a strobe light. That is a strobe light.
Jeanette,
Yes.
in your research and knowledge, do you find any overlap between dyslexia and face blindness?
Yes, and actually in different countries, they consider dyslexia to be related to face blindness. I want to say I read something about Japan, that's what they consider it there. It's not about decoding, it's more about the eyesight and blindness. And I was like, wow, because here, it could be either one of the two. You know, we do great research on auditory, and maybe that's a way, because a lot of children, as they're developing, they're missing those sounds, and they're saying, well, maybe that's the disconnect. But then visually, like you said, I've seen some people get different tinted glasses, and that has helped them to really strive and succeed. So, yeah, to answer your questions, yes. Any other questions? Yes.
Sorry, is dyslexia only words or is it also numbers? Or is that
You know what? Numbers is dysgraphia.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's difficulty with math and numbers. So it's basically in the same, I don't want to use spectrum, I want to say umbrella. It's under the same umbrella, but you know, individuals with dyslexia don't always have dysgraphia. Yeah. You need to do it, sort of thing. Is that something you've experienced, issues with numbers?
Issues both,
Both,
but more, well, I think equally numbers and words.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, you can have the two, dyslexia and dysgraphia. But have you actually, because I know your accent is very distinct. So when you were being schooled, you were schooled in the UK, correct? Somewhat, sort of.
Really?
Okay.
Ireland.
Because that's
It's over there.
Rip that band-aid off.
sort of, kind of. But I would say that.
Northern Ireland, which is part of the UK.
Okay, to my defense, I appreciate that. But what I'm gonna say is, different countries, again, do things so much differently as it relates to dyslexia, and here, it's considered a specific language disorder, like within our school systems, so it's just really, it varies everywhere. Okay. Any more questions? All right.
Actually, one more. If you think that your child has dyslexia,
What are the steps?
what are the steps? Like, who do you go to at the school and say, we need testing, or this might need to be accommodated, or what do you do?
So you would need to talk to the teacher first to see if maybe they notice some differences in the way that they're reading or writing or their inability to. And then at that point, the teacher can request further evaluation. What they'll need to bring to the table is obviously your information, what you've observed, what the teacher has observed, and then thorough testing will begin at that point. Now there's different timelines in different districts. Sometimes they test you within 30 days, some 90. So it would just kind of depend on the rigor of that particular district and how quick they are to assess those students. But you definitely want to talk to the teacher first, so they can be everybody can be aligned with their concerns. Because if the teacher says, well, he's reading fine for me, I don't know, then obviously there's a disconnect. So you want to get as much input as possible, and you also want to have observations and some evidence, documentation showing that, I asked him to read this paragraph, and he was unable to read this or that, or this is what he said. So, yeah.
Definitely one of the things kids do at home is like, I don't know this.
I don't have one.
Well, let me call your teacher real quick, see if they taught you.
Oh, yeah, no, we don't have to call, don't worry about it.
I would call them.
So yeah, that's a common misconception. Like, you ask your kid, what are you doing in school? They don't know. You have homework? No, we don't. Are you reading? Sometimes not. So talking to the teacher would certainly help kind of bring everything to full circle. All right, any more questions? Because I want to wrap it up. Well, you guys have been a great crowd. I hope I've answered some dying questions that you've had. I will make this available to you all. It's actually, I created a bit.ly link for it. So if you want to utilize it or just check it out.
We did announce this in the announcements, but we'll get links from all the speakers. We'll do a blog post afterwards with links to all the slides. So you can just go through and find what you want and throw it on.
So that's it. Join the ranks of these cool people and all the engineers and architects and entrepreneurs that exist. If you have dyslexia, you are not alone. There are some people doing some amazing things all over the world. I just found out Jay Leno is dyslexic, so you just never know.
Yeah, I just feel sorry for people like you.
Do you say what?
I am. All the time. Right. I'm sorry for that.
Autocorrect is a good hack to have.
Yes, but when
And also,
it's not really bad, it will make some weird ones. It's like, how did you get that? I'm like,